Good evening, captains and crews. I quite like the sound of that. Sorry, Firsters and Delta, I've just completely stolen your welcome. Yeah, we kind of need some collective noun, don't we, for Star Sim players. I think captains is quite a good one because, you know, ultimately most people will be captains of the ship. So, yeah, I think captains is a good collective term. See, I can't say shipmates without also prefixing it with a ahoy. Ahoy, shipmates. Yeah, ahoy, me hearties. I am just down the road from Bristol, so it fits. I tend to sound more like a hobbit, but Claire's from Bristol, so she can get all pirate.
I'm a pirate farmer.
You are a pirate farmer.
You're a farmer. I'm a pirate farmer.
Alright, because I'm from Somerset, and this is where I were born and braised. Braised. I was braised. They taste delicious. Yeah, Claire's a lot more Bristolian than me.
Yeah, that's because you're not from Bristol.
Well, that would be it.
Yeah,
but I'm Bristol adjacent, so it's only up the M5 from here.
Right, me lover.
Right, my lovers. I was going to do that once on every stream. I was going to start every stream with "Right, my lovers," but no, Claire said I'm not allowed. Anyway, who am I? What are we doing? Caravella, yes, that's what we were doing today. Right. So on the last Caravella stream, yeah, you're right, CSI. Yeah, the M5 is the escape from Somerset. Escape from the West Country. Yes, we were doing lots and lots of cabling and figuring out where all the cable runs and things need to run for the electrical system. Now, I'm going to step away from that ever so slightly because I've had a plan. I know it's usually quite dangerous when I have sudden random ideas, but I was looking at the framework sections here for things like corridors, and I'm trying to modularize this more efficiently. Now, we're already exporting the ship in modular sections like this, but I'm just wondering whether or not we can take that one step further and actually modularize the grid that we're working to. So obviously that's our ship grid, which is kind of arbitrary. It doesn't need to be that, but I figured it would be easier if we stuck to a grid. Now that does bring with it some restrictions that I found. In fact, I have found it quite restrictive having to stick to a grid, but that does make the modularity of the thing that much easier. So I was thinking, like with the corridor sections here, we can do the framework as a grid cube, and then within the engine join those pieces together to form different bits of the ship, and that way everything is aligned to a grid rather than aligning to these arbitrary snap points that we're using. Now I think, if memory serves, that the corridors are 2 segments wide. Let's copy some across just to remind ourselves. So that was 200 to 10, yeah. So Yeah, so each corridor should be exactly 2 wide, and that's inclusive of the wall. Yes, Lego-arize everything. We've been building Lego recently, actually. We're giving a bunch of my Lord of the Rings Lego to our adult son. And all of the Lord of the Rings Lego is like in one massive tub of Lego. Probably, 10 years worth of Lego collecting. And it's a massive, massive tub. And we're trying to like pick out all the pieces for one individual set. So that's always been a bit of a nightmare. Perhaps that's what gave me the idea. But yes, if we can Lego-arize everything, then that might actually work in our favour. I'm just wondering how we're going to handle sections like this, because we might need to do pieces that don't quite kind of align to the grid. Oh yeah, she asked me about the tractor beam about half an hour ago. Yeah, so we're not going to have a Star Trek style tractor beam. This isn't Star Trek, it's not a Star Trek ship, so we're not going to have some magical beam at the front of the ship that could hold on to other ships. It would be more something like a way of just making sure cargo gets into the cargo bay doors properly, or like a shuttle could lose power and be unable to actually make the final approach. So we'd have a tractor beam that's able to guide the shuttle through the shuttle bay doors. So we're talking a utility tractor beam, not the kind of thing you'd see in Star Trek. It's more for shuttle operations and moving cargo. Probably not even a Star Wars one, because Star Wars tractor beams are capable of actually holding a ship in place. Nothing even remotely that powerful. We're talking a gentle force on an object. So if you were to fire up your ship's engines, the tractor beam would not hold it in place. So nothing like that. Yeah, something like that. Something like using the the weak force rather than the strong force to pull matter. Like I swear I read somewhere once they managed to create a tractor beam that could pull frogs in the air, and they filled the frogs with like some magnetic fluid, and then they were like tractoring frogs around while they were still alive.
The frogs?
Yeah, the frogs were fine. It didn't harm the frogs.
Did you ask the frogs?
I didn't ask the frogs, but they were still
Can't
they were still hopping about, so I'm sure that they were fine. But yeah, they were floating in midair. But yeah, something like that. Not with frogs, with shuttles. Right, so one of the things that we also need to get right with this is my original inspiration for building the ship as nuts and bolts as we are was from watching SpaceX literally build a rocket on a sandbank in Boca Chica in Texas. Like, they had a tent, they had some rolls of steel, and they had some welders, and they were fabricating a rocket literally from nothing. And I loved that kind of gritty engineering, and I like doing something similar for this. So we want to have visible weld lines, and it needs to look like it's been put together. So we can actually use the grid to actually create that. So we'd have a grid of weld lines as well, because the ship's obviously built from bits of sheet metal that are welded together. I do wonder though whether or not 2-meter sections are perhaps perhaps too small. Because if I recall, these are all 2 meters by 2 meters, yeah. We can give it a try and see what it looks like. So for a piece like this, which would be a wall piece, we have a sheet metal edge like that. And we'd have the same thing over there. We'd have something like that for the base. So this then becomes a framework piece. Did I do that too high? No, that is correct. Oh, sorry, we wouldn't have that side, would we? So yeah, so that would be one side of the wall. And then we'd either have a door in there or it would be one with a cavity cut through for something. So we'd actually build up a library of these pieces and then put them together in order to form the ships. Ships plural. Hoping that would be a much quicker way of building vessels out. But let's see. Because then we'd need, obviously for pieces around the edge like this, you'd need specialty pieces. But at least it means at least for bigger ships, the bulk of the interior will be made of set pieces that don't have a lot in the way of proprietary bits. I guess where I'm going to run into issues with that is like corners. No, he's got a couple more VR bits to do. I was just doing that today. I spent the past 4 or 5 days bug fixing just to try and get the bug tracker down a little bit, because it was approaching the 3rd page, and I don't like it when it goes over 2 pages, so I wanted to knock a few off. That's amazing news, Delta. Congratulations. I'm pleased to hear it. Eventually, Lapis, yes. So the way we're going to handle being an alien race in the game is we're going to make it so that you have to unlock that race. So once you've met them and you've made a peaceful first contact, then that'll give you the ability to then start a game with one of their crew members, or a crew member using that species, or many crew members using that species. Yeah, so we'd have something like that. So we'll have a half-sized bracket, so they'd just join together. And then we'd have to have like half a weld line going around it. I did doubt it, yeah. I saw that earlier. That's mad. I mean, I know that they tested destruction, but I think in that particular instance, they weren't even doing a full pressure test. I think they were using like non-fuels. So they were just like purging the tanks, doing a pressure check, and obviously it failed quite dramatically. Sure, SpaceX will have another V3 booster on the stand before too long, though. They don't tend to slow down for very long. I haven't seen any kind of explanation yet as to what the problem was. Oh wow, Caesar, congratulations. We've yet to have that honour here. Yeah, give or take, Lapis, yeah. Obviously, we don't want to step on any copyright toes, but I'm sure the alien races we create will have crossovers and similarities with other races from other IPs. I mean, it's difficult to create a race which is entirely completely unique and not have it be similar to something somewhere. Like I've always been a fan of the Minbari from Babylon 5, so I'd like to make a race which is kind of Minbari-like in their approach to the universe.
But they don't have to look like them.
Oh no, they won't look like them.
But that's what I mean. So if we did have those kind of races, they just won't be recognisable.
Yes.
As those races.
Yes. Yeah. So you might. I mean, when we build the procedural system for like personalities and outlook and how that species views the universe and the people in it, you're going to, just through the sheer power of dice rolls, you're going to have a race which is pretty much exactly like Vulcans, but they won't look like Vulcans. They may behave like them, but they won't look like them. And they won't be called Vulcans, they'll be called some procedurally generated name. But yes, you will absolutely find races in the galaxy that are similar to races that you are familiar with from other products. The ones we handcraft, they'll be slightly different. Obviously, we have our own collection of races that we want to make. We don't want them to be all the same. We want them to be uniquely ours. Yeah, exactly, AJ. And I think because of our focus on realism and making things accurate, scientific, and everything else, I think if we go with a highly militaristic warrior-like species, then they probably won't be like Klingons. They're going to be, they're going to be intelligent with it. So it's one of those things, like nothing progresses technology like conflict. So whether it's corporate conflict or actual real war, it pushes technology forwards. So it's understandable that a highly militaristic species will obviously be progressing technology much quicker, because there's that conflict there driving that research forwards. So it would be something like that, but they won't just be mindless, dumb, vicious people. They're going to have an intelligence to them as well. Yeah, I think Romulans is perhaps an interesting analogy. I mean, I guess highly suspicious, highly intelligent, secluded, mistrustful of others, combative, within their own society. Yeah, something like that. I agree, Caesar. I think the Jakar and Londo story is perhaps my favourite story in all of sci-fi, and perhaps my two favourite characters in all of sci-fi. I think what Straczynski did with those characters is just mind-blowing. In fact, all of Babylon 5 is just incredible. But yeah, those two in particular, and I think Jakar specifically is my favourite sci-fi character, hands down, above any other. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking at this and thinking about potential gotchas in my plan. I think room corners is going to be one of the bigger ones. That's a weird mix. Okay, so this one would be a corner piece for the wall. So we'd have the same join there. We would have a wider piece there, although I guess we can just create a piece for there. And then how do we deal with transitions? So we'd have, let's bring up our handy grid again a minute. Okay. Because if we do go with some kind of a grid-based system for this, obviously I don't want it to look like it's a grid-based system. So we know we have things here which obviously don't conform to a grid. So we don't want to lose that organic flow. So if we were creating our pieces along these joins in the grid, then we wouldn't be able to do this curve because it's kind of outside of our boxes. So really that corner piece would have to be a piece in its own right, which means we'd have to have wall pieces and door pieces that all kind of fit together. Yeah, because in some places this is a good idea and makes sense, but in other places it's a bad idea and makes no sense whatsoever. Like when we've got complex curves, because it would force me to square that off basically and have a more generic curve through there. I think if we ever create a shipbuilding system, and it is something I'd like to do one day, then this is how we would do it. We would have a grid-based system where you have to connect all these pieces together. So essentially we're making Starship Lego, where we'd have lots and lots of different corridor bits and room bits, and we'd have them so they only fit together in certain ways. You know, I'm all about player creativity, so you know, if there's a way of making that happen, I'd definitely like to do it. It's the fiddly bits, like these corners, like right now, for us to have a curve there and a square room here, then the join has to be down the middle so that we can join those two different bits together. But there's also a corner piece there, so unless we make the corner piece a separate piece, which I suppose is doable, yeah, I suppose we'd have to have just a standalone corner cap, and then you can choose whether it's square or rounded. Because the idea is, as much as we'd be continuing, at least for the Caravella, we'll still export our giant framework sections out, but I can get bits like all these doors and things done more quickly by splitting it up into sections. Okay, which means for that edge there, Yes, we wouldn't be going all the way to the end, would we? We'd be going to the middle. Which means that the edge wall would be there. Yeah, I don't think we'll have any kind of cloaking device other than the ability to phase the ship. So our top tier technology is going to be interdimensional travel. So the ability to decouple from your dimension and recouple somewhere else. So that also has with it a side effect of being able to be invisible, because you're no longer like there in the dimension that you are a host to. Yeah, more like the Philadelphia experiment. Oops, no, didn't want to go that wide. 75, 50. Yeah, something like that. So just by putting these pieces back to back, we're already creating a door frame, which is useful. And I suppose we also need the bottom of the door as well. So the biggest flaw in doing it like this is that the door track needs to protrude through this support. So So we're just going to have to maybe ignore that. To define how far the door needs to open. So 75 centimeters would be like fully open with nothing visible. We don't want that. We want a bit of an overhang because we've got obviously a curved edge there, which is a bit of a trip hazard. So we want the door to be more like 70, like that. So the door only actually needs to open 70 centimeters. So we just put a marker there. So that means the door track also needs to be 70 centimeters this way. Which takes us to about there. Okay. Okay, so the door goes along the track there. So that's going to be the inner wall there. Okay, and then that needs to be 1 inch thick. Although saying that, I think we'll go all the way to the top. So I'm not left with any weirdness. Should have done that on that side as well. Cleaning up some of the interior geometry. Don't want any weird bits. Right, should get rid of that lot. Right, so that becomes the door track from one side. And obviously when they're joined together, you end up with a complete door track like that. And then we just need to put an end cap on it. Should be 1 inch thick there, 0.5 centimeter there. Okay, same on this side. Okay, so we've got a 10 centimeter door in terms of its width, and then the actual framework cavity that it goes into. We'll punch some holes through this just to make sure that our door track goes all the way through. But the nice thing about this is that we now have a set piece that we can just use in and around the ship as we need it. So maybe not so much on this deck, although we can use it here. So we can start getting rid of some of these kind of standalone pieces. There's a lot to that one, so I'm going to cut it off there. Oops, no, that wasn't 2.5, that was 250. Right, so we can get rid of all of that. And the same there. So we shouldn't need any of those bits because we'll already have them as part of our template piece. So if we grab I guess all three of those. Then generic room corner. Not copy. Copy. Of course. Just trying to work out why it was all the way down there, but that's because our grid is aligned to the middle of a deck, not the actual floor. So that needs to go up there. There we go. It's better. Okay, so that builds up the framework pieces we need for the room interior, including all the brackets in the right place. So then all we need to do is just make panel sections to fit the gaps that we have provided. Let's make sure we got one of those on this side. I watched that last night, Caesar. It looks really good. Will there be lore involving families made of different species? Oh, at some point, I'm sure, Lapis, yeah.
There's no families on the Magellan, though.
No, I mean, the Magellan's not going to have families on it. The Pathfinder won't either. The military vessels won't. So we're probably looking at future expansions. I guess DLC 3, trading company, family-run trading ships, that sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so not anytime soon. Yeah, that would be interesting, CSI. Yeah, that's why we're not including them. It's there's no way that, certainly on something like the Magellan, which is supposed to be an experimental vessel, I mean, there's no way they would allow families on a vessel which might not even return home. I mean, the crew are obviously going on that mission with the expectation that they may not get back home to Earth because the whole thing's an experimental test. So, why on earth would you put kids on a ship like that? That's crazy. Did I not make that a component? I know I did. Component 138. Component 138. So 0183. Oh, it's the same one. So why does that one have that bit? Makes no sense. Oh, I see, it's flipped. Right, okay. Okay, so I think for the room side, because we don't know ever exactly what we're doing with the bracing on the inside, because we don't know where the panels are going to go, we'll treat the corridor side as the one that goes all the way across. Which means we need to pop one of these over here. So what I'll do is, when I actually round all this off and smooth it nicely, I'll drop it down a bit and I'll have the weld line on one side only, so that when you join them together, there'll be a cohesive weld line all the way around. But then I can also just have weld lines running along the sides and the tops here. So when they're all joined together, it means everything has weld lines without me having to go back and add that separately. So do we assume that if we have a corner, it's always going to have another wall next to it? In which case that's always going to come across like that to form a square. Yeah, it might lead to a few awkward bits like that, but we'll keep running with it and see what problems we encounter, because it works fine there. Although, that said, if we're always assuming that the corridor side is the thing that goes all the way across, which would always be this one, then that doesn't work. So if we make this one just a straight interior wall piece, then we just need one of them, which is on the wrong one, should be on that one. Yeah, so that works. Okay, so that would give us a room with all the brackets in all the right places to do the paneling. Now obviously for this particular crew quarters we do need some proprietary bits like the bathroom and the bed. So the bed would probably take up maybe 1.5 squares, and then we'd have a diagonal doorway there for the bathroom. So maybe a bit across there like that. Yeah, so the only time I can foresee this approach having issues is where we have proprietary bits that need to be able to continue the support bracket all the way across, which is probably what we just add one there maybe. But then there's no reason why we can't do like complete rooms that still fit to the grid, which is probably what this one would be. It would be a full room with the proprietary edges already in place. Right at the moment we are just looking at how easy it would be to modularize this, because I like the idea at some point in the future, not anytime soon, of having almost a Lego-like construction system for building any ship. So we can open that up to players and allow players to build their own vessels using just pieces of ship that you can like bolt together. Obviously there's a lot of complexity in that, especially when it comes to pipes and wires. But if I can at least get the system prototyped, then we can use it for building things like this ship and backer ships more quickly, because we're not having to worry about fitting in a standard door piece, because we've already got a catalogue of door pieces that we can just throw in to the ship. So we're not having to model things from scratch every single time. So the more modular we can make it, the better all round. And then for proprietary bits like I guess the edge section around the Caravella, there's a lot of weird sticky out bits, especially when the RCS is going to be kind of bolted onto there. For those sections, we'd make that proprietary pieces, but a lot of the interior, just the rooms and corridors, would all be modular. We're going to have different UIs per manufacturer. So the Magellan's a UN ship, so it's going to have the UNOS UI. The Pathfinder will have the same UI. The Caravella will have a Lunara specific UI, so we need to come up with a different UI visual feel for this particular ship, and every Lunara ship will have that UI. So it's definitely going to be manufacturer specific. Lapis, so storyline, yeah, the general idea of the Magellan is that it is mankind's first ever deep space exploration vessel. So it's an experimental ship that is going out there and exploring the stars for the first time ever. And it's been likened to the NX-01 in Star Trek, and I guess that's a fair comparison. But the idea is that this is literally humanity's first ever attempt at exploring the stars. So, the experimental nature of the vessel means that everything it's doing and everything it's seeing are the first time those things have ever been seen or done for the human race. The Pathfinder, which is going to be our DLC 1, that's going to be built from all the lessons that have been learned from the Magellan and her mission. So again, she's an experimental ship, so everything about that particular ship is about learning how to do this, what works well, what doesn't work, how do the crew hold up, are the procedures that are put in place for the Magellan, do they need tweaking, are they the best possible procedures you could be using in the scenario that the ship is put in. So things like that. The story for DLC 1 is basically getting out there and doing the big deep space exploration mission. So that's the big 5-year mission, you could say. Going out there, meeting new alien races, dealing with the politics of that, and ultimately finding the game's big bad, which will be a hostile insectoid species. And the latter half of DLC 1 is going to be about working with the other races nearby Earth to kind of push that species away and ultimately work towards forming some kind of an alliance with those Earth or Sol adjacent races that are in our neighborhood. DLC 2 is about a much bigger and messier war with those same aliens, the Insectoids, who we are calling the Scrag. There will be lots of different hive ships around the galaxy. there'll be one in particular that DLC 2 focuses around, and the idea of DLC 2 is to defend the Sol system, push them back, and ultimately deal with this hive ship, which is causing issues in this sector of space. DLC 3 is going to be about picking up the pieces after the war, so fixing existing colonies, building new colonies, expanding human presence, in and around the Sol system, and beyond. And the whole premise of DLC 3 is going to be the player owning and managing their own space shipping company. So, you'll start off with a sublight, small trading vessel, and then you'll work up to bigger and better FTL capable vessels, and ultimately you'll be out there supplying all these new human colonies with what they need. Kind of inspired by Firefly. I want it to have a very kind of Firefly-esque feel to it. Being fans of Firefly, it's very much up our street, so that's the kind of thing that we'll be going for with that. And we do have some other non-expansion story arcs planned. We definitely want to do one which is a kind of like Stargate Universe, in that we want to have an alien vessel that you stumble across and have that as your only way back home to Earth. So that's going to be more of a puzzle game almost. So it's rather than like a full campaign, it's more of a scenario, like a little a sub-mission where you have a human ship that was out exploring space. It finds a region of space that is in some way detrimental to FTL. When it kind of destroys the ship, it ends up crashing into an asteroid, but there's a lot of other derelict and broken ships in that same area, and your only hope is to get aboard this giant alien ship and then try and figure it out, try and fix it, and then trying to get it home. So there'll be a lot of puzzle elements of trying to work out how this alien ship works. I mean, how do you even turn it on? And I think that would be quite exciting. So I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, we'll have lots of little mini ones like that. And we also want to, obviously, once all the main campaign and story stuff's been done, also look at things like a cruise liner in space. That could be quite fun. Do something completely different and just have the player running a cruise liner. So rather than all these big important missions where you're exploring the galaxy, you're literally just ferrying around a load of passengers, which are all causing problems for the crew. So that could be fun as well. So there are many different ways we could go with this, with either full story campaigns or just like mini expansions with just silly little things like cruise liners. The Caravella is a corporation ship, so all the UIs will be basically that corporation's specific flavour of whatever UI they're using. We will have luxury yachts that will probably have different UIs for the engineering side and the passenger side, but for the Caravella at least it will be the same, although obviously there won't be any engineering type information in the non-engineering areas. Why are the Insectoids always the bad guys? Yeah. It's a fair question. Because they are. Now, I quite like the premise of the Scrag and how we're doing those. And I also like the fact that when it comes to their architecture, I get to play around with, you know, H.R. Geiger inspired architectural designs. Which is going to be very, very fun. You know, I've never actually played Scorn. I've wanted to many times, I've just never had the time. I've watched pretty much an entire playthrough of Scorn. But yeah, I've never actually played it myself. Which is a shame. I need to get on with that at some point. From what I've seen, though, Scorn is an absolutely stunning game, and it's weird to refer to something like Scorn as beautiful, but it is. Like, some of the graphics in that game are just absolutely incredible, and yeah, my hat's off to the designers, because just wow. Yeah, we wouldn't go down the whole fleshiness that Gorn has, or, you know, all the kind of vaguely veiled sexual references. It would be more the artistic style, that kind of, I know, just that H.R. Geiger style, without the gore. So it'd be like a non-gore version of that. So a very insectoid version of H.R. Geiger. I don't think we ever saw any interiors, did we, for 8472? Just fluidic space. Oh cool, I don't actually remember seeing any interiors, but yeah. Yeah, Lex was a weird one. I remember watching episodes of it and just being baffled I guess it means what you mean by the essence of Star Trek. I mean, I'm definitely one of those people that firmly believes that New Trek is not the essence of Star Trek. It's definitely lacking what made Star Trek special. I don't get the Star Trek feels from the New Trek stuff. But yeah, I guess it's the wonder of exploring the galaxy. See, Stargate's an interesting one because, as much as yes, it does have that exploration element to it. Pretty much every planet looks the same. It's all just some forest world with random different coloured skies. They don't really push the boat out when it comes to truly alien worlds, which is a shame. I think Stargate would have been a lot more interesting if their alien worlds were more alien. But yeah, I guess you're right. It's that whole exploration of space. I mean, that's why we're building this game. I mean, we want that feeling of going out there and exploring and finding something new, and going down to a planetary surface and it not being like Earth and it looking alien, and looking at this plant that you've never seen before and trying to figure out what makes it tick and is it poisonous, and all those interesting things that you would really be doing if you were exploring the galaxy. But yeah, that's the feel we want. Yeah, the NPCs, well, at least the alien NPCs when we make them, hopefully they will be nuanced and interesting. We certainly don't want them to be cliche. We want them to be completely plausible. I'm sure some will occur naturally through the general course of things. Just thinking about the surround panel that we need to put around here. So we were going to go with a panel which goes up an angle. So we'll probably have that happen there. Yeah, so we make this panel the angled piece. Then we'll have a flat one for the door. And I think the plan was to have one whole panel go across the end as an end cap. It's going to be a big old panel, but it's the cleanest way of doing it. Unless we can maybe fit a door panel in there. We'll see. Okay, so we also needed generic corridor wall, which I guess is that one. That's interesting, actually. So it might actually be better to make this one inclusive of the curve, because it would have to be the end piece that's opening out into the room. So if we had utilities running through this, normally on a straight piece we'd have the plugs for the utilities down one side, but this one's going to have them going around a corner. Okay, so that actually deals with our corner piece problem quite nicely, I think. Let's pop a copy of it up there just so we can see. Let's take a divide down there, because one of the things that we need to do with the detail work is cut through our cavity so that we can start doing like pipes and wires behind the walls and such. So that would go like that. So the corridor side has the cavity, and then the room side is the solid one. Oh, see you, Lapis. Have a good one. Yeah, then this piece would have to be a prior. Yeah, they would both have to be proprietary pieces. One for the stairwell, one for the lift. But then they'd fit into the grid that we've defined with these pieces. So we'd have to do a similar thing on this one. Or we'd have to take that edge, copy that into the middle there. Means that should be 50 centimeters exactly, which it is. Good, good. And then we can define the detail bit. Num bum. Right, so we should be able to just take out that bit Yeah, then we'd have all the support stuff from that room. Okay. And they all join together seamlessly, which is nice. So for things like this crew quarters, like these 3 pieces here can remain standard pieces, and then these 6 pieces here, these can be proprietary to the quarters because we need room for the bed. So that's going to be like a built-in cabin there. So that's 2 meters. That's, yeah, if we have some shelves on the sides, that should be more than big enough. And then we just have to deal with the bathroom, which will take up that space there quite happily. Might have a quick crack at that now, actually, while we're here. If memory serves, I did actually have a template for that somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so if we translate this to the grid, yeah, so we were discussing the idea of double bunking, because 14 might not be enough people for a crew this size. Sorry, for a ship this size, rather. So we've got more than enough room there for those bits. Now we could fit another bunk here easily enough, or just have them both side by side against the back wall, which I think I'd probably do, to be honest. Yeah, I was thinking if we were to just have them against the back wall, and then just have another one over there, We actually have enough room easily to fit 2 in side by side. Or we literally have them stacked bunks. I mean, there's more than enough room to stack bunks. And the halfway point would be there. Yeah, so if we were to put that back, then we could have a little sofa area there, a little table, built-in desk there. Bathroom, obviously. Yeah, so space-wise, we'd incorporate that into the paneling, so it would be a modular unit that's just slotted in, which means that the bathroom would come all the way up to the middle. Same there as well. There's no point wasting the space, although we probably need a little bit of leeway for brackets and stuff. But yeah, I mean that can just be either a curved door or just like a saloon style door that just swings open, like a double door that just swings both ways. Either is possible. And then yeah, then double bunk this. So that's half a meter up. So if we say, what's that? So that's 75. So we make that 1 meter. Then how much would we need here? If we say a quarter meter down from the ceiling. It's almost a meter of space on each one. Yeah, the labs that it will have will be dedicated to its mission profile, so it's out there to exploit, and you know it's going to be things which are relevant to that. So probably like material sciences, geology. It's not going to care about things like biology and stuff like that, but we'll probably have multi-purpose machines in there that can do a bit of everything, because we don't want, I guess we don't want the Caravella to be unusable for exploring the galaxy. So it has to be able to do everything that Magellan can do, but in a less efficient way. So if we have a multi-use science tool, you can only use it for one science discipline at a time. So if you want to do a bit of geology, you set it to geology mode. If you want to do some biology, you have to change some setting to make it work for biology. So unlike the Magellan, where you have set up dedicated labs and you can just do science whenever you want to, on the Caravella it's going to be one bit of science at a time. So you can do everything in a less efficient way, which means that we're not making the ship useless, which we don't want to do. Okay, so if we double bunk them like that, we have a crew of 28. We get built-in sofa there, little table or something there. We'll stick a drinks machine in maybe in the corner. And then yeah, some kind of a desk arrangement. And if we do 12-hour shifts, then essentially people are just crossing like ships in the night. So something we need to do for these ones actually is that see, we're including the what would be the deck below's sheet metal on top, which is kind of not accurate for the way we're building the ship. So I think with a full modular system, you know, we'll do away with that. But for this, maybe we'll build it in. Does mean we get to build the like the underfloor bits procedurally as well, which would be nice. So what would that be? 1, 2, 3. So deck 2, segment 3. 2 walls, segment 3. Oh yeah, so I was doing the cap there. Oh, that's fine. Alright, So if we grab that. Oh, opening on the wrong screen. It's better, starting to see some structure now. So the sheet metal bit, if we incorporate that into these sections, then we don't need to do that bit separately. Yeah, that was the snapping guide. Let's see if we can flesh that out a bit, shall we? Yeah, because the floor plates that we would put in here, so they'd be aligned to the grid as well. But we also need to think about like corners of rooms and things. So that would be a corner. So if we were to do a floor panel which was aligned to the grid, we'd have to come down to there. So 175. We have to cut back a little bit to fit the wall panel. Go all the way to the middle there. Then we'd have to come away 0.5 there. Also there. Because we want the floor to go up against the wall panel, not under it, so that we can pull the floors out without having to take the wall panels off. I don't think the base of SketchUp has changed a great deal. I guess everything I do is with plugins anyway, so it's difficult to say. So between each panel, we need a gap of nothing. I guess we'll have a small gap around the outside. Oops. Right, yeah, so we need to also make sure that we export this in line with the grid. Just our origin points there. Also all the components. Yes, I have played both. I found Pulsar to be good. I found I wanted more from it. Like, it was a little bit basic and too combat heavy. I guess I never played it with another human being. I only played it with the bots. So I didn't really get a feel for what it's like in multiplayer properly. But yeah, it seemed very combat heavy, which kind of wasn't what I was looking for. And yeah, Artemis, I was playing that with Claire, and we were going around doing stuff. Again, the whole point is, hear our opponents, go and shoot them. And I want something deeper than that. At least nice square floor tiles give you nice square collisions. So I shouldn't need a socket for this, because all I need to do is, if we grab that floor tile. There. Oh, did not export in the right place. Hang on. It's because I didn't select the group before exporting, which means it's put it using the world origin rather than the object origin that I told it to have. So if I now re-import, you can see the collisions are now in the wrong place because the actual mesh is over here. So we will remove the collisions, add them back again, and now it's where it should be. Right, so in order for that to be in the correct place, and I suppose if we zero that out a minute, and then if we set our grid size to 100, and it should only move in 100 unit jumps. Okay, so that's going to have to be 50 then. Yeah. No. Okay, yeah, so it is aligned to the grid. Are we the right way round though? That's the question. Perhaps we're not. So let's go like that. Yeah, because the origin point for the mesh is over in that corner, so it should equal that here, which means yeah, so it is on 100 units. Right, so that's in the correct place. So if we set that back to 100, correct there. So I'm just experimenting with not having to need the snapping grid, and that actually works really well, so that's good. So if we do a center panel and some wall panels, that should get the whole room done. Then we can just copy that across there as well. So what we can do is different panels with different designs. So we could have a panel that's got the edge trim, we could have one without the edge trim, and then just swap them arbitrarily. Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, there will be shooting in this game. There will be aliens to kill. They will shoot at you. And not everyone will be friendly. But that's not the game. That's not the point of the game. The point of the game is to explore and find new and interesting stuff. I like to look at, I guess, the combat aspect of the game as failed diplomacy. So, if you found yourself in a firefight with somebody, then you've obviously done something wrong. So it should be a sign of diplomatic failure as opposed to normal gameplay. Although there will be some alien species that just want to watch the world burn. Make sure I'm in the right group. Yeah, that worked. Just plopped right on in there. Oops, wrong one. Yeah, I think that's going to be a relatively quick and efficient way of getting all the floors done. It's yeah, much easier than having to set up snapping guides and doing all of that. So if we're sticking to the grid for all of the wall panels and such, then yeah, that's going to make life much easier. And then we can actually replace these with actual floor panel actors so that they do things like grime over time and support rumbas and that sort of thing. So I think what we'll do in terms of the flooring is we'll do we'll align maybe a tile and a half to that grid point there, and then we'll do a similar thing for the bathroom where we'll align it to that grid point there so that we can just drag it into place, and then we'll have those objects as solid pieces, so we'll just basically take up that amount of space with them. Reminds me of like when you set up like a D&D campaign board with all the different pieces for the buildings and such. It's kind of like that, which I like. I like that vibe. Yeah, definitely there will be tea stains, I'm sure. So we do the same thing we did in engine. Rotate it around 180. Oh, of course, I get a corner piece, don't I? 400. 400. And 180. And then if we make that unique, then we need to bring that out to the halfway point of that panel. So we should be equidistant to both sides, so 280, 280. Yep, that puts us exactly in the middle. And the same with this one. Okay, yeah, so we'd have that down as our floor panel, and then the bunk's going to have to guess we're going to have to come in a little bit because we need to leave room for bolts and things. So maybe we'll give ourselves 10 centimeters there. And we'll make this into a proprietary piece. Right, and then if that's the edge of the panel, then we'd have like bolt holes there holding that on. So I'm going to be designing this as a prefabricated piece that just, like during manufacturing, they'll just take a whole bed unit and just bolt it in. It wouldn't like built in situ or anything. And I guess probably a similar thing for the bathroom. So if we pull that up a minute. So the bathroom module is also going to have to be something that's bolted on. So we'll have an edge there. We'll have a think about the door, I suppose. So yeah, we bring that across to there. Copy that over there. I did hear you sneeze.
I didn't sneeze, I coughed.
Is it a cough? It sounded like a sneeze.
Tried to put it under the blanket. Right, so the bathroom module basically needs to take up this much space, and then we need to think about how wide we want the door to be. If we grab that a minute. So I reckon a meter is probably kind of what we're looking for. And then we would have to move that across there to there. So that would be our footprint for the bathroom, excepting I suppose we also need to think about wall thickness. And we'll curve the edges as well, for good measure. So, actually, yeah, if we bring that in a bit. In fact, why don't we bring it in to the edge of the grid point? There. On both sides. So that gives us clearance of 13.6 centimeters. So if we give it 10, I guess, just to give us a bit of margin. I guess the biggest sort of gotcha with this is if we've got this gap down the side, how are you going to get down there? Because that's only going to be 20 centimeters wide, which is nothing. So maybe that needs to bolt onto the side there. I think having a gap down the middle is going to look stupid, so I think what we'll do is we'll be nice to keep it centered, but let's see what this looks like. We can always have the bed unit and the bathroom unit physically attached. They don't necessarily need to be all one unit, they can just be attached together. And then if we need to leave some space this side for bolting on there. And then we'll just have to like assume that it's bolted on this side. Although we can show that on the inside. If we make the walls basically 2 inches thick, that gives us something like this. And then our 1 meter wide door. Go. Why on earth is that doing that? Weird.
Yeah, I like the idea of blending those together, so you have a nice kind of rounded edge there, and we'll still have like a visible seam, so that they're separate units. But if we kind of just curve the edge nicely, then it'll just kind of help sell the fact that they're separate modules. And then we can maybe have, because if we were to make this maybe one piece, like a solid piece floor, then I can do a border around there. So that being the case. So I like the idea of aligning it to the middle, definitely. So if we assume that it's bolted to the floor rather than to the wall, that means we can just bring that out so that they're in line. I guess the same that side, so we can bring this out to there. See you, binary, have a good one. Oops. Move that in line with that. Right, and is that 45 degrees? Yes, it is. Great. Yeah, fair point, Caesar. Okay, so if we line it up with the frame, then we'll have standard wall panels through there. I think I might move that one over there more. Yeah, so see, this is where having like a strict grid adherence to a strict grid kind of messes you over a bit, because sometimes you just need that freedom to, like, if I want two panels there the same width, obviously they can't adhere to the grid, so you just need to make sure we're catering for that. So I'll have one that's corner piece there, corner piece there, and we'll then have one solid panel there, two solid panels there. Sorry, Delta. I wonder how this would look.
Or, even better, can move this to the edge of the curve, round off the edge of that one. That kind of blends it in a bit more there. Yeah, we definitely want as much prefabrication as we can, because that's just efficient design then. And I think I might maybe do away with having a perfectly 45-degree angled door, just so we've got some edging that we can play with. Well, unless the bed's not too narrow, because we could just make it slightly bigger up this side. That gives us a bunk width of 1.5 meters and a bit. Yeah, so we move that one back there 10, and then move that 10. Yeah, so I'm thinking probably have a set floor piece in here, so that's just one solid floor, and then two separate modules for these two objects. So we'll have a slight join down the middle there, so we can still round off these edges. It's just it's not exactly 45 degrees. Oh, unless we don't have it come to exactly the middle of the room, in which case it can be. This is where having the ability to make arbitrary changes is useful, because if I just move that over 10 centimeters, then we get to keep our overall alignment. And we just have, how big would that panel be? So from there to there, yeah, so the 2.2 meter panel in that space. And then from here to here, we'd have two panels that are 1.65 meters. Which is not the end of the world by any means. yeah, it's the office hot tub. So I'm just double checking single bed sizes. So So I'm thinking something along the lines of a UK small double. So a small double is 4 foot by 6'3". Don't know why it's showing me sizes in feet, but there we go. So 4 feet would be that. So plenty of room for that. A full double is 4'6", so that's 4 foot 6 inches. That's that. So to be honest, we've got a size. Well, we've got room enough for a full double if need be. I'm thinking small double will do it though. And what's that? So that's lengthwise, that's 6'3". Yeah, so there's our small double. So we've definitely got room enough for a ladder up the side without the ladder having to come out into the room. And then if we kind of stagger the beds a little bit, so yeah, so we'll have like storage here for this bunk, and then the bunk above will have storage at the other end, and we'll just have the two bunks staggered just to fit in the ladder. I mean, the ladder's going to be about 1/2 meter wide. That's more than big enough. Fair point, Caesar, actually. We need locker space, like wardrobe space. I guess we'll squeeze that in along here somewhere. Right, let's move that out of the way a minute. There goes the camera. Yeah, I do all the base modeling in SketchUp, and then all the game ready stuff happens in Unreal. Yeah, I guess the issue we have with
storing stuff under the bunks is that we can't lift them up in the game very easily. I'm thinking like a saloon door for the bathroom door, so you'll have two doors and they'll open up like that. So they're fold against the wall. Yeah, because the only other thing we could do is have a sliding door, but then there isn't really anywhere for it to slide to, because there's not really enough room there for a cavity. So it would be 50 there, 100 there. Yeah, so the door would be that big, which means there's nowhere for it to slide to. Nope, no Houdini. So if we countersink the mattress in there like that, so if we're calling that the midpoint, that gives us total room of just under a meter, and then we'll drop that down a bit, maybe 10 there, 10 there. Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a ghost. Yeah, so that's basically the storage box for that bunk. So we'll have shelves and things in there. Hang on, how much wider was that other bed? Oh. So the difference between a small double and a double is literally 6 inches. What is the point? Yeah, maybe not all of them as double bunks, but we'll see.
Actually, that one can come over a bit further. That's true. Yeah, I mean the storage area that's there now is a little bit perhaps on the overkill side. Yeah, let's get rid of a couple of these inside bits a minute.
Okay, so something like that, I guess. Although, maybe raise up the shelf ever so slightly. Yeah, so we'd have a ladder going up there, and if we, because we're stepping away from the edge of the bathroom slightly now, we can actually have that at an angle, just to make that easier, and like a hand grabby thing there. So each crew member would have shelves at one end, some kind of storage locker at the other end for whatever they want to stuff in there. So that needs to come over another 5. Florida King mattress. Wow, $2,000 mattress. That's extravagant. Okay, they're huge.
Like fit 6 people.
Yeah. For when you can only afford 1 bedroom and all of your family have to sleep in it. Okay, so that gives us a shelf width of 17.5. It should be the same there. Yep. Okay. So we're aligned that side, we're aligned that side.
So that needs to come over to there. Just make sure we're getting all the measurements right here. So it's 12.5. 5. Good night, CSI. Have a good one. So how much space is that taking up? Not too bad. I mean, it strikes me as being a little bit awkward to get into. Yeah, this is a little extreme. Don't know. Let me Google it and have a look. Oh, it's like a literal ladder. Yeah, I want something that's kind of molded into the design, so it's you know, I don't want something which looks too bolted on. I want something that's like, with the rest of the architecture of the ship, it's all going to be very molded and very curvy. So this will be the same. Now, to be honest, I've not really looked at much for inspiration. I'm just kind of winging it just to have a play really and get an idea for what we may or may not be doing. And to go 2.5 there, so. Be the top. Yeah, I can see the issue with putting footholes in, and to be honest, yes you can, because we've got that cavity there. I don't want to eat into the storage area for this bunk. But yes, we can, ultimately. Let's just finish the ceiling bit a minute. Yeah, generally speaking, a diagonal ladder is easier to get in and out of than a vertical one, but maybe we can put a hole there as well, maybe. can also have a handrail here. Oh no, too big. To be honest, I could kind of go with both. So have a bit of an indent into the frame, but also have it stick out a little bit as well. So if we have each one maybe stick out a tiny bit more. Actually, no, I keep them the same size. Yeah, we could do something like that, maybe. To be honest, they probably can fold up to fit. Yeah. do, 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 do. Oh, actually, how big did I go with these ones? Oh, 15. What's going on there? Oh, I see.
Yeah, so something like that, and yeah, it's nice that we've got that room from the bathroom as well. Okay, let's just open that back up again. Yeah, so there's definitely more than enough room for 2 crew members. I'll try and get some storage along this wall, and yeah, we'll try and get a sofa in there as well. Maybe even at this end, although this kind of lends itself more to a desk maybe, unless we make this the storage section. Perhaps we'll do that. Perhaps we'll have some storage over here. And then make this the living area bit there. With a drinks machine, and a sofa, and a desk. So just out of curiosity, more than anything else, let us grab our little marker there. We group those up, make them a component, and then we group them up with the marker. And then let's set our origin point accordingly. Drag it in engine a minute and just see what it looks like. Let it do the nanite collisions for now. Yeah, that's a good point actually, Delta. Yeah. Get some kind of like blind or something you can pull down. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and I'm sure we can squeeze toilet and shower and sink into this little space here. I mean, it's yeah, quite big in the grand scheme of things. If we turn back our grid on, grab that, do that. There won't be carpet in the bathroom, no. This is just a test. Yeah, true. Yeah, so I'll definitely make the floor a solid piece segment. Obviously separate flooring for the bathroom. Make that as fitted and modular as possible. We'll I'll continue to flesh this out and make it betterer. But yeah, I think we can definitely fit 2 people per room if need be. Obviously, we'll have a look and see what we actually need aboard the ship, because we got. I mean, the captain and the XO have their own quarters anyway, so they're fine. And then we need. Yeah, we'll have an engineer on the bridge. Combined sensors and comms, combined defense and offense, helm obviously, probably at least 4 scientists. So what's that? So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's 9. Doctor, it's 10. Yeah, a few engineers.
And then maybe some some steward staff, obviously for the kitchen, and some other bits and pieces. Yeah, so we might not need to double bunk all of them, just some of them. But we'll see. We'll see. Because I guess ultimately, we're going to need more than one shift aboard the ship. So, if we're doing 2 12-hour shifts, then we at least need double the crew. So, we'll have a look. Yep. I prefer the dimmer light. True that. Very true. Okay, well, we have gone over our midnight deadline, so I shall wish you all adieu. I shall see everyone on Wednesday for more Magellan class fun. And I'll probably do more of the VIP lounge, VIP quarters on Wednesday, which will be very good. Right, see you all then, and bye for now. Bye!